Hey guys, my name is Sam Villaroman, and I don't know about you, but the lockdown's got me feeling pretty down. But I got my hands on some juicy steak, shout out to Meatco, and that's something to celebrate. So today I'll be teaching you guys 5 easy tips to an extremely well done steak. And by well done, I mean delicious, not overcooked, but yeah, I'm sure you guys get the point. Tip number 1 is to start with a good thick cut of meat. We'll be using a special cooking method where thickness is of the essence to get a nice medium rare to medium center, while also getting a super crusty crust. Due to the lockdown, I found that the most sure way I could do this was to buy meat in bulk and learn how to not butchering it myself, but in normal circumstances you can always just ask the butcher at your supermarket to get it custom cut thick like this, at least 1 to 2 inches. As for the kind of steak, here in front of me I've got my personal favorite parts of the cow anatomy, ribeye and tenderloin, and I enjoy these for 2 different reasons. The ribeye comes from a part of the cow that naturally collects a lot of fat, which seeps itself in between the muscle fibers and what's known as marbling. When cooked, the marbled fat in the ribeye melts into the steak, resulting in an extremely flavorful, juicy, and tender piece of meat. Tenderloins, on the other hand, are extremely lean pieces of meat with little to no marbling. However, they come from one of the few parts of the cow that doesn't need to put in a lot of work, and so the lean muscle remains tender and soft despite not having all that much fat. So yeah, go for ribeyes if you want a rich, decadent treat, and tenderloins if you want a leaner, more mellow steak dinner that's still super tender. Today I'm feeling a little decadent, so I'll be using this thick bone-in ribeye to demonstrate the next couple of tips. Tip number 2 is to dry brine your steak. This step takes 2 to 3 days, so you're going to want to plan your steak dinner ahead to do this right. So what exactly does this do? Well, dry brining has 3 effects on the meat. First, it allows the salt to penetrate deeper, resulting in better flavor. Second, the salt interacts with the meat in a way that makes it more tender and hold moisture better. And third, it gives the steak a dry surface that's optimal for searing. I'll put some links in the description and articles from food scientists that flesh this out more if you're interested. All you need to do to dry brine is to salt your steak as you normally would. Here I'm using some coarse sea salt because kosher salt was out of stock everywhere. And make sure you salt this generously because it's a thick cut of meat. Then you're going to place the steak on a wire rack in the refrigerator, uncovered, for 2 to 3 days. After 3 days, you'll find that your steak looks really different. There's no salt left on the surface, the whole thing looks a little leathery, and there's more contrast between the red meat and white fat. I know you're not used to seeing meat like this, but this is perfect and it's exactly what we want. We're going to let our meat come to room temp while we prepare for step 3, which is to use the reverse sear method. And that may sound scary, but all this is letting the steak slowly cook in the oven to the doneness that you want, then taking it out and searing it quickly on a super hot pan. To do this, start by preheating your oven to 95 degrees Celsius or around 200 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're in a hurry, you can bring it up to around 135 degrees Celsius or 275 Fahrenheit, but I highly recommend being patient and going as slow as you can, because this is what gets it cooked super evenly. While your oven is preheating, we're moving right into tip number 4, which is to use a thermometer. You can use any kind that has a probe. Here I have one that you leave in the meat in the oven, and an instant read digital one, and either of them work. The point is that using a thermometer is the best way to get the exact doneness that you want. There are too many variables at play, so going off of time or even touch, which I never really understood, can have varying results. The only sure measure is to get the internal temperature of your meat. Once your oven is preheated, we're going to chuck in the steak and let it go for however long it takes for your desired temperature. I'll be the first to say that if you like your steak medium rare, which you should, you do not want to do what I did here. Let me fast forward to show you why. Yeah, so what happened was I didn't have the optimal temperatures committed to memory, so I relied on the first search results on Google, which are wrong. First of all, the final doneness temps listed here are off by about 10 degrees over, and secondly, and maybe more forgivably because this may work better for grilling than reverse searing, but they recommend to take it off the heat only 5 degrees below your target temp. I was shooting for a rare to medium rare, so I took it out at 54 degrees Celsius, which is around 130 degrees Fahrenheit, hoping it would go up to 135 after resting. Unfortunately, it went all the way up to 145 degrees Fahrenheit, which, because this chart is off by about 10 degrees, was well into medium to medium well territory. Now, if this is all confusing, don't worry, I'll leave a link in the description for this chart, which seems to be the most accurate temperature ranges for different degrees of doneness, and be sure to pull your steak from the oven not 5, but 10 degrees below target temp. Trust me, you'd rather have an undercooked steak that you can finish off with a little more time in the oven than an overcooked steak that's beyond redemption. Okay, so now that we've learned that little lesson in the pursuit of well-cooked steak and quality content, a week later I got another bone-in ribeye and did the whole process again. It's the least I could do for my 170 viewers and 22 subscribers. This time I made sure to take it out at 45 degrees Celsius, aiming for a final 55 degrees Celsius medium rare. And now we're finally ready for tip 5, which is to sear on either a cast iron or stainless steel pan. I strongly advise against using non-stick pans for this, because non-stick material is not meant to go to the high temperatures needed to properly brown steak. You'll just end up with a subpar sear and wear out your pan faster. For the best results, use cast iron or stainless steel. And if you've had trouble with meat sticking to these in the past, I'd recommend reseasoning your cast iron or just making sure that either of the two pans are ripping hot before oil even touches them. So the first thing we're going to do is to preheat our pan on its own till it's super hot. While that's preheating, we can prepare a few more ingredients for the sear, which are just a few cloves of crushed garlic, some sprigs of thyme and rosemary, and around 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. When your pan is ready and super hot, pour in a little canola oil or vegetable oil, swish it around a bit, and let that get hot for a little bit longer till it's smoking, maybe around like 30 more seconds or so. Then gently lay your steak in and sear on one side until a nice crust forms. This shouldn't take more than 1 to 2 minutes. Once done on one side, flip and let it go for around maybe 30 seconds before adding the prepared basting ingredients. Then you're going to want to tilt the pan and using a spoon, scoop the melted butter over the steak over and over until the crust forms on the second side. Once that's done, give it a little sear on the other sides and then transfer the whole thing to a cutting board and pour all of that fragrant, nutty, garlicky, herby brown butter over it. And that's it. Congratulations, you've just made what may be the best home-cooked steak you've ever had. Enjoy. So here is our steak. Sorry for the missing pieces, my camera ran out of juice while I was filming the initial tasting, but for the sake of narrative, let's still give it a try. Now honestly, this isn't the best steak I've cooked. I didn't get it medium rare all throughout like I wanted, and most of it is actually on the medium side, which is weird because I pulled it much earlier and the final reading was on the dot at 55 degrees Celsius. Just goes to show that there are multiple variables at play here and I'll need to constantly fine-tune based on what I have. The times I've done this well before, we're using meat from a different source and also a different thermometer, which is since broken. Yeah, this one actually just came in the mail. But yeah, regardless, I hope you guys still learned something today. And if you do end up trying any of these tips, I'd love to see them on Instagram. You can follow me at sam.villaroman. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys around.